So I'm Marco Marquez. I'm a customer engineer in Google Cloud, and I really got passionate about AI from, especially from 20 years ago when I got my first email. I started looking at till date. I started receiving a bunch of emails on promotions and and different coupons, etc. That are in a lot of cases irrelevant. I'm sure you probably are going through the same thing. But then when you want to do unsubscribe from all these sessions, all these emails, you start wondering like, what if there is a good deal there, and you don't want to miss out, right? So I started personally wondering like, what can we do with technology to make this so much easier, right? To reduce the big amount of emails that we get that are basically irrelevant, and really narrow it down to what we're really looking for. So now that I'm at Google, it's something like I'm finding a way to help. Right? Basically, how we can bring AI to market analytics to make it so much easier. So my hope is at the end of the session, you can really find the value of AI, especially if you can apply it to your marketing or share with your marketing teams. And maybe we can start using the amount of spam that we get on our inboxes. So let's get it started. In March 2020, we saw one of the biggest increases phenomena on demand forecasting. You think about it, every company goes through their forecasting probably on a yearly basis, some on a monthly basis, some on a daily basis. But this event was very difficult to predict. One of two people were not able to buy toilet paper at some point in the year. One of two people. That means half of this audience struggled with that last year. And unfortunately, this panic demand kept growing through the months. 2 months later, in May, they started exposing how difficult it is for the supply chain to react, and how many flaws we have on the system to be able to redivert inventory from one place to another to make sure that we can cover the demands. It was so bad that even 6 months later, companies were still, grocery stores were still not able to support the customers, and they end up with a bunch of shortages across the board. Now, how many of you were in that situation? How many of you were buying, more than one toilet paper that was needed? Let's be honest here, right? We were onto that, and all this was because of social media, maybe misinformation, maybe the news. The ironic part, it wasn't generated by the marketing teams, but they were not able to react efficiently, and they were not able to transfer the same information across the board. Reuters estimated that by mid-March, the amount of stores with no toilet paper was around 50%, and it kept growing between 60 and 70% throughout the following months. I mean, think about it. That's 40% that's 50% of people not being able to get a product. Imagine in your company, 50% of your customers are not able to get your product for a given reason. That's pretty scary, isn't it? What is more scary is that Forbes estimated that after this crisis happened, 9 months later, there was about 15% of customers that were not able to be served. 15%. Now imagine what would that cost your business. If for a given reason, imagine there is a new viral, one of your products goes viral, and for 9 months you're not able to support 15% of your demand. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of customers that are unhappy, and that's something that maybe we can do something with marketing analytics to help. Right? So let's start with one of the options. Google Trends, what we saw on those months is that we actually were able to see the searches of what the users were looking for around those days. You can see a spike on toilet paper. You can also see a spike on hand sanitizer, face masks, yoga pants at some point. So all this information, it's part of what we call part of the search engine. And one of the good news as a commercial now, it's this data has become available this year. So now you have, if you're a Google customer and you're using BigQuery, you can have access to this information, which basically are the top 25 search trends that are happening in the market for the last few months. So imagine you can start putting together your own data, your own sales data, your own inventory data, and start matching it up with what are the users searching overall. Right? This is a highly high level demographics on what are the typical search trends. Imagine the type of information that you'll be able to get and what type of value you're going to be able to get out of it. Now, imagine now you can collect that information as well and match it out with sentiment, right, from social media. And I was mentioning the different tools that we have to analyze text, analyze images from different posts in social media. There's a nice chart created by Health Trends that found the concerns on toilet paper in the US. This was posted around June timeframe. So now imagine you can not only just understand what are they searching for, but where, right? And maybe you can start passing that information to your supply chain on how to redivert the inventory from one place to another, how to make sure you have certain stock in different places. Now, this is a very specific example on retail, but it could happen in any industry. It could happen in a news area. It can happen in the data area. It can happen if let's say you're a cloud provider. If you're not able to understand where your users are and what type of demand is coming from, you won't be able to react efficiently towards that. So, so what do you imagine now? If you have this level of information that you can match it together, what can you do? Right? Even better or worse is what could happen if tomorrow there's a new trend on one of your products. Are you able to supply the demand, or are you prepared to react to it? If I ask most of you, and something I have heard in the market is, yeah, our marketing team takes care of that. So we're going to talk about what the marketing team can do and how can you help them to be more efficient on that. So marketing teams in probably every company in any industry have these three challenges: how to get new customers, how to keep existing customers, and how to maximize the value of existing customers. So to bring new customers is those emails that you get, those ads that you see outside in TV, on billboards, on your phone, is basically what the marketing teams are investing to get you attracted to get to their website. How much you navigate to the website, how well designed the website is, helps with the consideration or the click-through rate. And then the marketing teams basically measure how much it costs to bring those customers, depending on the amount of money they invested on a given campaign. Then you have keeping your existing customers. Keeping existing customers is when you're navigating to the website, you're adding something to the cart, and then you leave because you found a better deal on a competitor. That's something they call it churn. It's basically how the customers leaving the website, how you're unsatisfied with a given product and you decide to go to the competition, and basically how much revenue they're losing through missing subscription, missing sales, and so on. And then maximizing value, which means, do you have the right inventory based on the customer preferences, based on inventory needs in the right location? And then how can you sell more to your customers based on what they are looking for? Now, imagine having the right information, putting the right layers of data on top of it, and using AI, the benefits that you can bring to your business. For example, if you're able to see what the users are searching, get a better understanding of what are their interests based on their what type of videos they see on YouTube, and then what type of behavior you see in the market, you may be able to react with months or days in advance on what type of trends are coming to the market, and how can you redistribute products or launch different products that will be able to support them. So marketing teams, to get to that point, they use tools. They use a lot of tools, and because they have usually a lot of good budget to run this, they go and try to find different tools to cover this. Some go with social media, with different marketing analytics. The whole industry of MarTech has a lot of tools around it. And Built With, in 2017, launched this beautiful infographic that shows the landscape of digital marketing. Just by looking at it, I get headaches. right? Just imagine the amount of data, of the skills that these marketing teams need to have to be able to learn all the different tools. Now imagine the amount of data that they have spread out in multiple tools, and how do you decide which one to trust? And then security, don't even get me started, right? It's, especially as an IT professional, and just by looking at the participants here, most of you are the IT professionals. I'm sure you're wondering, like, how are you keeping all this data secure, especially when it leaves out of your current infrastructure or your current cloud provider? So this is why this is important for you, because as IT professionals, it's our responsibility and our hope to help these teams to make sure that we can provide them a secure environment. We can help them consolidate the data and avoid duplicate data in all the different places. And in the best of the cases, we can avoid having shadow IT. In previous experiences, I was on the CIO organization, and we had to always find the balance between all these business units that had a lot of budget that were able to find their tools. And a lot of the cases were as a service solution, so they thought it was just easy just to get a subscription. But then finding the right governance of data, finding the right security was a challenge to make sure that you can provide the enterprise data and match it up with what they are doing outside. So you might be as well be proactive and help them set that up. So to do that, what you can do is basically provide a AI-powered analytics platform that first helps them collect data, the same way that Dave was describing is collect data from different sources. This could be your own data, right? It's your CRM system, your inventory, your ERPs, your sales, any data you have that is already available. You're probably doing already a data lake or any data warehouse. How do you make that data available to your business users in this case, and then the marketing analytics team? Then how do you tie that up with Google data, right? This is a unique opportunity to use the search trends, the top 25 search trends that are available. If you're curious about it, let me know. You can reach out, and I can show you some good examples of how you can use that. And then Google Ads, if you're a Google Ads customer, you'll be able to get a lot of information on what are your users visiting, what are they watching, what are they buying, all through the Google network, and you'll be able to get better information 360 degrees. And then third-party data, right? Industry data or data from your partners. You put all that stuff in a single platform, right? That is BigQuery, Google Cloud, and enable AI as the same way as they described. That makes it so much easier for everybody to use it. You can be a developer, you can be a data scientist, you can also be a business user. You can leverage AI in the comfort or in the way that works for you. And then what you can do with that AI is visualize and activate it. Visualization makes it so much easier by either picking the tool of your preference, or we have tools like Looker that will make it look so much nicer. You can activate that data by integrating with your marketing platforms, integrated with your ads platforms, and the best of the cases, monetize that data and get an extra source of revenue. All this stuff is supported by our cloud products that basically are by nature focused on ensuring a secure environment that you can have control of it. Now, if we go a little bit detail on how this works, you basically provide them a way to collect data from different sources. All these different sources could be data that is coming from Google Ads or Google Analytics platform, or your data, right? In a lot of cases, in the best of the cases, the more data you bring, the better, right? You put all this together, and it doesn't matter what source they're coming from, what type of format they're coming from. You can do that transformation and put it in a cohesive and secure manner using BigQuery. And then you can start leveraging AI on top of it to do the analytics and the forecasting that you will need. We're going to get into details on how that works. But then the visualization and activation, as I mentioned, is the easy part. It's how you're gonna look at it, and what are you gonna do with that data? So the way you can help is by providing a secure platform where you can enable that data. You can help them integrate data from different sources, start consolidating those silos, and then provide them the tools, especially from AI perspective, they can leverage that information. So we're going to go through one example on how does that looks and how we have been able to help other companies. So let's take the San Francisco Chronicle. It was a newspaper that was struggling to retain subscribers. They came to us with a challenge of, hey, how can we predict the number of cancellations that we're going to get and improve our renewal date? So we asked what type of data you have, and they came with the data inputs like, obviously, the Google Analytics data, their subscriptions, their newsletters, their demographics, their web usage, basically their website, and a few other more components. So when using this technology, they were able to increase from 5% to 30% of retention rate. 5 to 30%. That's 6 times the retention rate. Now, if you stop here for a moment and think about what would be the benefits on your company, if you're able to double or triple, let at least 6 times the retention rate of your customers. Again, this could apply for any type of customer, right? You could be providing as a service solution. You could be providing banking services. You could be providing retail. Retaining customers is one of the best, is one of the most valuable parts because you already have them. They already bought something from you, and you don't want to lose them. And then they were able to, San Francisco Chronicle was able to recover the investment by 7.5 times just by focusing on the 4% of factors that drove cancellations. Well, 4%, that's nothing, right? So think about like, you would usually use the Pareto analogy of like focusing on 20% or 80% of the value. They were able to focus on just 4% and drive significant benefits for the company, for their own investment. Now, imagine what would that go for you in your business? Do you know what are the top 4 factors that you should focus on that will give you the most benefit? If not, that's where AI could come into the picture. So, basically the way this works is, as I mentioned, we have your data, but you have your data, you bring the more data you have, the better, right? Historical data, in terms of sales, in terms of subscriptions, in terms of users, visits to your website, the more information you have, the better, right? Your campaigns, you start mashing this up with external data, such as the Google Trends, such as the Google Analytics, maybe social media. The more data you can bring together, the better. Then you use data pre-processing to start matching it out and finding the correlation between, or the relationship between the user visit with what type of interactions, what type of preference they have from the different sources of data you have. Then you let Google find the model for you, or you can select a specific AI model. As they mentioned, we have a lot of good pre-trained models that you can use. And based on the data, you'll be able to identify what's the best model that can fit you. And then you make that data available for also in BigQuery for visualization and integration with other systems. So the models, this is just a very high level, and is also recapping a lot of the stuff that what Dave was mentioning is we have examples for the data scientists if they want to do very detailed analysis, such as using TensorFlow, analyzing images, analyzing voice and text messages. You can use logistic regressions for text analysis, for analysis, for example, linear regression for pricing estimates, ad sales, temperature, time series with ARIMA plus, and all these different models are already pre-trained. In a lot of the cases, depending on your data, it's going to recommend some of the models based on the model that matches the most. But let's say for what we use for Chronicle, we use the time series model. Now, the Vertex AI will give you 3 different ways of working with it. It could be through a UI, and if you are working with business users that may or may not have a lot of deep skills, they can use the UI and leverage all these models that are already created. They're working with developers, they can use it via API or an SDK. Or what we have seen a lot in all of the cases, marketing teams have analytic users that are very familiar with SQL, and they want to continue running their analysis on SQL. So what we, for example, this is a very simple way how they can do that with SQL. This is a very simple query that shows total visits per day. So imagine they take that query and then you add a little simple text on the top, basically to create the model. This is the only thing they would have to learn on how to use AI and ML, basically what models are out there and how to set it up. Then they can train the model and explain the results with just a simple query and a range of confidence. And then they can run the model with just a forecast function. I mean, think about how simple is that. Before you have to have data scientists to do all this stuff. Now, any data analytics person can be able to do that. The result of that is going to do basically behind the scenes, looking at the data, it's going to look at the variation and what are most of the cases in this, using the time series analysis and regression analysis. In this case, it's going to show that within 90% of confidence, this is your forecast, the orange line, and then you can start matching it up with the actual on the same time frame. And then that will help you validate if your model is sufficient to start making decisions for the next months to come. So this is an example of some of the attributes that you can use and what type of information you can gather. So in the case of the San Francisco Chronicle, they use a univariate and multivariate data sets where you have a multiple correlation between different variables. And AI was able to identify seasonality, trends, different patterns driven by or different factors, what factors are affecting the patterns, such as promotions, outside events, changes in price on the competitors, and so on. So imagine the capability that you can get for your own company if you're using this type of forecasting. So going back to the San Francisco Chronicle, this is the result. It's basically, you can see here, they were able to get by user what was the likelihood of cancellation, right? And with a 92% confidence. That's a very high confidence, right? So what they did is they focused on the top 4% of attributes that drove these cancellations, and they started taking actions such as sending different type of e-communications, sending different type of promotions and interactions with those customers to motivate them to renew and increase the retention rate by 6 times. Again, 6 times. This is pretty amazing. It is something that if you do it for your company, you could be, the benefit you can bring to them. So what's next? As I mentioned, I would like to invite you to join me, right, and help the marketing teams do better forecasting. How can you do that? Is you can reach out to your marketing teams and ask them, hey, how do you forecast demand? What type of challenges do you have? How can we help from an IT perspective, right? Then take a look at our different marketing analytics tools and see how you can impress them by using AI to predict behavior in the next 3 months, or to get a better understanding of what happened the last 6 months, to see if that will give you some more insight on the months to come. And by doing all that and bringing them to a secure and a scalable platform, you also become a data security hero in your organization. And that's the best way you can keep your information secure.